All right, everyone. Hello, it's WAVIT again. We're here, podcast episode with Britt Yenser. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We're excited to have you on this side of the microphone this time.
Yeah, we've completed our crossover journey.
I'm excited. Have you been on this side of the microphone before on different episodes?
Yeah, I have. It's always interesting to flip from someone who's used to hosting to being a guest where you're like, oh, wait, I'm not in charge. What's happening?
You don't have to keep track of everything.
Don't.
Yeah, I enjoy both. We did one episode with me, and then I actually have to interview you, Lex. I just realized this when I was talking, is we have to have you on as a guest as well. But it was just interesting. Like, I was a lot more relaxed. I just kind of didn't think about the production side of things. So yeah, I can imagine. Hopefully this hour will be a nice, relaxing experience for you.
Yeah, I'm excited. I get to kick back and just say things out loud, and that's your problem then. Then you have to figure it out.
Exactly. So for those in the industry who might not know who you are, do you mind giving a little blurb about who you are and what you do and who the Britt Yenser is?
For sure. So I'm Britt Yenser. I am the AV manager at Northampton Community College in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I am also on the board of directors for HETMA, and I am the creator and host of the Brave Space podcast, which airs on higheradav.com and all the places you expect podcasts to be.
There you go. That was a good term. That was very succinct.
Oh, thank you.
I think she does this on a regular basis.
You've done this before, I could tell.
Yeah.
I was looking at some of your profiles just so I could remember, some of the awards that you've acquired, and just I'm really impressed with your LinkedIn profile.
Oh, thank you.
Lot. I was like, I should probably fix mine up a little bit neater. Like I went on there, I knew exactly who you were, I knew what you were about. It was just great. It was so kudos to LinkedIn and getting that all sorted out.
Thank you. I just took like an hour one day and was like, let me clean this up a little bit. And I, of course, used our friend the robot. Like I went to ChatGPT and I copy and pasted in like old job description, stuff like that. And I was like, write this in a certain way. And I just kept prompting it. I prompted it a couple of different times until it said it the way I wanted it to. And then it was just like repeat that process for a couple different spaces. And now I'm done. So, I mean, not to... Huh?
She got me so curious. This is so good. Everyone go look at her profile.
I'm telling you.
Wait, this is actually so good. I'm learning so much about you.
And I feel like whenever you're like, I use ChatGPT or some other AI source, then people feel like you didn't put a lot into it. But I did. Like, I had to specifically prompt it and tell it what I was looking for. And I had to do that a couple of times to like curate it. So I put in the work, but not too much work. That's the point.
Well, you know what? And this happened the other day at work where somebody was like, oh, you had ChatGPT write this whole thing. And I was like, technically, yes, but also we worked on this together for hours, like to really specify things, like to really make sure it's exactly what I want it to be, because also I'm not going to put something out there I haven't completely read through. And then it's like, I had to pick specific prompts that like you couldn't just like find randomly and like really give the details, have it ask questions. So I was like, I'm curious because I was like, I'm not going to feel guilty and say like this wrote it, like ChatGPT wrote it for me, because also like I was very, very much involved in this over several days.
Yeah.
So I think it counts for sure.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, sorry, this is what I do. I come on and I'm like, tangent immediately.
That is what we're here for. You go ahead.
I just feel like I don't feel bad when I delegate to someone who reports to me, right? Like that's the whole point. So like I'm delegating to ChatGPT. I am telling it what I want and I'm giving it prompts and I'm guiding it along the way and I'm getting the product I want. No shame in the game. So anyway, that's why my LinkedIn profile is nice.
I love it. Do you guys use ChatGPT or Claude?
I use both.
I love Claude. She's my girl. She's my little personal assistant. Wait, so you used to play tennis?
So that's a really fun and ridiculous thing. No, I never in my life have played tennis or known about tennis or been good at any sport. But what happened was I was teaching in a Title I school. So that is very limited funding, a very scrappy, you do what you can. And some students came to my door. I was actually tutoring after school. And they were like, we're looking for a tennis coach. And I was like, I mean, that's tough, kids, but like, I'm not the gal for you. I don't sport in any way. And they were like, Miss, we've asked everyone. And if no one steps up, like, we're going to lose our program. And they were like, we'll run it ourselves. We just need you to babysit us, please. And I was like, let me talk to another adult about this and confirm that that would actually work. And I went to the head of the athletics and I was like, hey, this is what the student said. I would hate to see their program go the way of the dodo bird, but I don't know anything about any sport at all. And he was like, oh no, that's what we literally need, a glorified babysitter. If you'll do it, then do it. And I was like, all right. So I ended up coaching both junior varsity and varsity girls tennis for, I think, 2 years. But literally it was not, and I tried, I'm not gonna lie to you, I did watch YouTube videos, I tried to give my input, I did come up with some pretty sick warm-up routines that they enjoyed, but for the most part, the older girls coached the younger girls while I stood there going, I think you're doing amazing.
Aww.
Golf clap.
Such a fun side quest. I love that. So you were an English teacher. You would have been a great English teacher.
Thank you.
I didn't know. Like, I feel like it was high school, right? Yeah.
Yep.
You would have been the cool English teacher for sure.
Thank you.
That's so cool. Anyway, everyone go look at her profile. It's very good.
Copy paste, right?
Yep.
So speaking of your profile, I saw on there that you just started at Northampton, right?
Yep.
How's that been going? What's the AV manager life like over there?
Yeah, it's great. It was a really great transition for me. It's like any higher ed position though, where you have to feel comfortable wearing a lot of hats and having a different day every day. Luckily, that's good for the way my brain works. But you know, some days I'm designing a room and figuring out like, what do I want this classroom to look and feel like? And that also includes obviously talking to faculty and other stakeholders. And then some days I'm scheduling events and like, oh, hey, we have to support this thing, this time, this person, make sure they know what they're doing. Sometimes I'm in a meeting I don't want to be in. So, you know, every day is different.
Yeah. I had a really cool experience recently where I was able to talk at a higher ed event for the Midwest universities and colleges. And some of those stories that I learned about managing different classrooms and the meetings that they're in all the time, just seemingly, it's like you need that mug that says, this meeting should have been in an email. And just
But you know what? To be fair, sometimes I get upset when people email me too. What I need is a day of silence.
Yep.
And I think we all need that. Like, pick one day a week where no one interacts and we just head down, do what we have to do.
I know somebody who every Wednesday their whole day is blocked off. Can't
That's
schedule
smart.
anything, just Wednesdays, and that's just the way it is. And she's like, you could schedule around Wednesdays. Good for
I do
her.
a little bit of that. Because I learned early on with Sony, like if you don't block calendar time off, you'll just forever be booked by something or someone. And so early on in my career there, I blocked off 9 a.m. on Monday morning, just 1 hour, and then also a half hour for lunch at 12 o'clock Central. And that so far has been pretty good. There's maybe twice a month there'll be a meeting that has to happen at 12 o'clock Central. But yeah, if I don't have that hour Monday morning, I don't even know which way is up for like the rest of the week. Like I have to like look through all of my calendars, all of my emails. I have to strategize and organize. And then I'm ready to hit the ground running at 10:01.
Yeah. 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 And sometimes if you don't take that time to ease in, you're going to be so much less productive for the rest of your day. Like always set yourself up for success. And if you don't schedule your time, someone else will schedule it for you.
Yep. Yeah, that could be said for a lot of different areas.
Yeah.
I have to schedule. I'm sorry, I keep hijacking.
No, you're good. You hijack.
I've learned by just like scheduling. So I'll like schedule in lunch, kind of like you were saying, but then I'll also schedule, like put in my calendar, like when I'm going to the gym or when I'm going to whatever. Because if I have it in a calendar, for some reason, I'm very obedient to the calendar and it works really well. So
Right.
every Monday is like my planning day for the whole week. And it's like, okay, looking at all these, where can I schedule in like little pockets for me?
Yes.
And then that helps me be a lot more productive instead of like, you know, kind of floundering around.
I love that.
I like that what you said about being obedient to the calendar. For me, I have to have my Teams light green at 9 a.m. on Monday. If I don't, I feel like I'm late to work. And honestly, that's for me like every day. Like if I'm not signed on at work, sitting at my desk at 9 a.m., I am late.
Good for you, girl. Couldn't be me. I'm like, I'll answer when I get the chance.
I know. Well, it's funny because I've been working from home since 2016. So I've just developed like what Britt said, what works for your brain. Like what works for me is I have to have a designated thing to get to. Otherwise it won't ever happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually balance 3 different calendars for various categories of my life. And that was one of my work from home tips is, if you're a type A type person, put the thing on the calendar. Also, I learned early in my working from home life was the fact of not having shoes on during the day was also a brain teaser. So I have office shoes that live in here. I'm pointing at them. I don't have them on today, but when I come into my office in the morning, those shoes come on, and then I'm like in work mode. It's so weird.
Wait, because you have ADHD?
Yes.
Do you? And then Britt, you do too, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting to see how all 3 of us work differently.
Yeah.
How our brains work.
I saw a social media video last night. It was like 10 ways to know, like, tell me you are ADD without telling me you're ADD. And it was this gal just walking around her house showing things that only ADD people would know. And one that she showed, like, I felt so called out. It was, she opened her silverware drawer and all the silverware was, organized properly in the bamboo thingy, but specifically the large spoons and forks and steak knives and like the tiny silverware irritates the mess out of me, and it usually just goes into a drawer and I never use it. So
interesting. I only use small spoons and forks. I hate big spoons and forks. Get those out of like, why am I wearing giant spoons and forks? I exclusively use the small one. My husband knows. He hands me a big one. I'm like, I didn't know you hated me today. Like, that's not who I am. I cannot stand it. And if they're all dirty, I will go out of my way to wash a small utensil. Like that's how adamant. I don't know why. That's how adamant I am. So it's so interesting because we're like both, but then also very opposite or different.
Yeah.
The joys of ADD, I tell you. So speaking of balancing things, you are also board member on HETMA's board.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I have like 1,000 questions for you, but I'm going to pick 2. One is, what's it like to balance that and your work and being famous in the industry? And then 2, I just recently getting elected into city council here shortly. So I would love to pick your brain and for our audience to learn what are successful metrics for someone who is either a board member or being involved in an organization in some way. So I'm only going to pick those 2. Otherwise we'll be here for 5 hours.
That's awesome. Congratulations. We've already talked about like knowing how your brain works and knowing how time management looks and feels to you. That's a big, big chunk of it, is knowing how you're going to fit these things into your day, week, month, a year. Mm-hmm. Knowing what the expectations are of you that come from the other board members or the organization. And to me, frustration stems from miscommunication and missed expectations, right? Mm-hmm. So in order for me to not be frustrated and for people to not be frustrated with me, I just want those clear expectations. What is it that we're trying to accomplish, and what is it that you need me specifically to do. And as long as I know this is my task, then I can figure out that this is how much time it's going to take, this is how it's going to fit in, and whether or not that's a reasonable expectation of me. Don't be afraid to talk things out and say, like, I know this thing has to get done, but I can just do these 2 pieces of it, and I need somebody else to pick up these other 2 pieces. That's the reason you have a board of people, not just one person.
Right. How do you, I know that every board, especially at the beginning years of an organization, like they have the issues with like, there's so many things to get done. Also being able to rely on other people to take it seriously and get their stuff done in order for the whole group to kind of move forward. How do you guys balance that on the board?
Yeah, I think it comes down to communicating what needs to get done, which is also a challenge, right? Not everyone communicates the same way or communicates the way you might like them to. So even just getting on the same page of that, of like, are we emailing? Are we using this special network that we have? Are we using this other website? Like, how exactly are we sharing information with each other? Let's get that down. Let's get that consistent. And then for me, I recognize what is actually within the scope of my control. So if I am currently blocked on a task because I'm waiting for someone else, it is what it is. I'm blocked on that task. And I can only ping them so many times until I need to let go and let God. I'm not their boss. Yeah. We're not getting paid millions of dollars to do this thing. Like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I use that strategy also at work too, because there's so many micro departments inside of my company, and I feel that same way. Like, I kind of have like a 3 ping kind of process, like, hey, hey, hey. And then like after that 3rd, I'm just like, you know what? I'm good. I've done what I needed to do. Now, if there are millions of dollars attached to it though, I will ping someone else and say, hey, I'm trying to get a hold of this person. Do you recommend another way to communicate with them? And then I can try to get some movement. But I agree with you. Sometimes it's just like, basically by them not responding and holding up their end of the bargain, they're holding a large part of the responsibility of that thing failing. And so what does the larger perspective members have to do? And that's redirect, right? So if the thing's not happening, or so it died, with so-and-so, then we got to change gears and figure out how to accommodate that change. I don't really see it as a failure, honestly. I see it more of like a challenge, right? Because, okay, cool. I was given this KPI. I have to meet these numbers at this date. And if this person is not responding to what I need them to do, that gets communicated to whoever it's got to get communicated to, and then I have to move on.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it's pretty cool. I also love that you chose an organization that's directly connected to, something that you do every day. I mean, that's pretty valuable too. I think that's another element that's worth mentioning. Do you feel like there's a healthy kind of give and take? Like, oh, I learned this with my HETMA experience. I'm going to apply this to work. I learned this at work and I'm going to apply it to HETMA.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's very symbiotic in that way. And like you said, knowing that it has this very direct tie, what we do with HETMA impacts me as a technology manager directly, and it impacts the people who I know directly. Like I know a lot of my colleagues in my surrounding area who work for other institutions. And, the more I expand my network, the more I see, hey, the choices we're making here and the work that we're doing here is having a positive impact on people who are trying to do this crazy, I wear many hats and every day is different job that we have.
Right. Yeah. I also noticed, I've said this recently, that the higher ed community is one of my favorite market verticals to work with, because you guys really work the gear appropriately. Like it's kind of how, relating it to horses, there's some horses that cost a lot of money and they go to farms and then they're not utilized properly. They're just kind of lackadaisically worked, and then it's like lost efficiency. something that I love about putting gear into higher ed environments is you guys, for lack of better words, use the shit out of this gear. And I love the response and the outcome and the think tank conversations. It's just a lot of fun to be a part of. And I've only been, other than Avixa, I've been in manufacturing. So I think that there's a lot of different perspectives also to have, which is why I like to see organizations like HETMA who want to put those perspectives on a larger stage, because they're driving conversation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, not only do we use things past their life cycle, but we also figure out creative ways to use things where it's like, this might not have been the intention of this product, but I figured out a way to use it that met my needs. And just like seeing that really interesting creativity and like what ideas that sparks, where it's like, I kind of wish this product did this additional thing or had this other input or whatever, because I'm using it in this fun, wonky way. Like, it's interesting.
It's the most creative bunch I've met in AV.
Yeah.
As far as just like, because the budgets sometimes are so limited. And also it's like working with the government. It takes so dang long to get anything approved. So you just have to make something work in the meantime. And it's just so fun to see how all of you guys are thinking. And I think that's also what makes the HETMA community so invaluable, because somebody else might have spent all the time learning how to make something work a little different way, that you don't have to relearn that wheel, and you could just share information. Makes it so much easier for everyone.
Yeah.
So switching gears a little bit, you are a fellow podcast host with your own podcast, and I wanted to kind of just give you the stage to share some journey experience that you had. What gave you the idea to start the podcast? How'd you pick the theme, and how you've enjoyed it so far, and maybe what even your plans are for it as you continue?
Yeah. So Brave Space started about 2 years ago now. And it all started because it was headed toward Women's History Month. And I was driving into work, and at that time, my role was predominantly supporting event technology. And to that end, I worked with the campus's DEI office a lot, because they were always doing lots and lots of events. And I thought, like, how could I partner with the DEI office, not as a person who's providing something to them, but as a true partner? Like, what's an event I can do with them, specifically to talk about what it's like to be a woman who works in technology, because that's a really interesting perspective for Women's History Month that I haven't seen them do before. So I got to campus, I parked my car, and I just walked right to their office and was like, hi, good morning, I have an idea. Like, that's just how my brain works, where I'm like, I have an idea, and now it's your problem. I have learned over time to, when I approach someone, be like, hey, I have an idea. Do you have the headspace for me to share an idea right now? Instead of being like, bleh. But anyway, I go to their office and I'm like, I have an idea, and here it is. And they loved it. And so we ended up doing this like hybrid event model where a bunch of women from all over the industry came in over Zoom and talked to our students and the industry at large. It was like an open to anyone thing about what it was like to be a woman who works in AV or IT. And at the end of that webinar, there were some comments that were like, I feel like we're just scratching the surface. We could talk about this forever. Like, this needs a part 2. And I kind of sat on that feedback for a while, and I thought, like, instead of doing a webinar once a year and dragging this conversation out, what if this was an ongoing, constant, and evolving conversation the way that a podcast is? So I put the idea of the podcast out there, and Joe Way was like, put it on Higher Ed AV, like, let's go do it. And so that's really how it was born. And it's been interesting to see how it has evolved and grown over time in the way that I hoped it would, where we started talking about the sort of things we talked about in that webinar: toxic masculinity, toxic femininity, and, literally, what is your experience being the minority in a space? And what are all of the ways in which that intersects? Say, like, a woman of color or people on the different gender spectrums, all of that stuff. Like there's all these intersecting ways of life that affect who we are as humans and how we are treated when we enter space, especially when that space looks and feels a certain way usually. And now we still talk about that, but we also talk about imposter phenomenon and neurodiversity and accessibility. Like it's just kept growing and growing and growing to all of these other DEI topics. And it's been fascinating. It's been humbling. I feel really honored that people trust me to host those conversations. My specific personality type, I actually really struggle to not be the expert and to speak on something as if I have knowledge and authority, right? Like I don't know everything about all these things, and yet I'm putting myself out there to be like, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
So that's been challenging. And I've said that I would like to keep doing Brave Space until we don't need it anymore. But given the climate of the world, I don't know how sustainable that is for me as a person.
Sure. What a great journey. Oh my gosh, I love that. Basically, idea to actuality to now you're just kind of operating in its efficiencies. Like that's fantastic. And I also love that goal of not, keeping it around so you don't need it anymore. That's an interesting goal. I mean, in general, just thinking about how that can apply to other areas in our professional lives too is another thought that came from that. I like that point. I really enjoy podcasts in general. I listen to many of them. As a traveler, I would listen to podcasts on the road. And then now, I don't travel outside usually a 3-hour radius anymore. But inside, anytime I'm going anywhere, I usually listen to something. And I like these styles where they're kind of casual and back and forth conversation. I get more out of it and it's more enjoyable to listen to. It's interesting you mentioned personality styles tend to, play a big role too. Lex and I talk often about, who we're interested in interviewing and, thinking about this potential person. And sometimes when we come up with names, we're thinking, we have certain questions that we'd like to ask them because we know they would be a really good, SME or point person in that type of topic. We had a really great interview in our last episode that hopefully all of you have listened to, which was with Kelly Perkins. And we talked about kind of the differences of what it's like to be a woman in team dynamics professionally. The fact that we happen to be in the AV industry was kind of like an after fact, but it was just a great conversation. And she has a really great personality for that type of conversation. And the hour flew by and I couldn't even believe we were still on the first set of questions by the time we were done with that. So is there an episode that you kind of think back on where you're like, I feel like I finally got this going forward. My feet are underneath me. I know what I'm doing. Let's just rock and roll.
That's hard to say because every episode is so different and unique. And there have been conversations that I walked away from feeling like that was it. That's Brave Space. April Tucker comes to mind right away. Just those like, man, it flowed. I vibed with that person so hard. I kind of want them to be my best friend, even though it's really like an unrealistic ask. But both of your each respective episodes, incredible, phenomenal. Again, walked away being like, wish we could be best friends. And those are the ones. But then sometimes you walk away and you're like, I think I might have pushed them out of their comfort zone too far.
Yeah.
I think maybe there was some level of discomfort in them that created discomfort in me. And that episode's going to air, but that was not great.
Yeah, I've been there especially because I feel like both of our podcasts, the idea behind it is really getting to like the root of things and being able to talk about the things that are sometimes uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what brings that inclusivity and equity into the picture. So then some conversations, talking to some people, like it is interesting to see how people react to it and and how deeply we delve into it, and also knowing that maybe not everyone is comfortable with going as deep as maybe some of us want to go. So it's been so interesting. But I remember when I was first thinking up the podcast and kind of the idea for WAVIT, I was thinking of yours specifically, and then another one outside of the AV industry that I felt like were just really good conversational, but also felt like I was in part of really important conversations. And it didn't feel so fickle. It felt like, wow, these are conversations I wish I was having. And I just liked being able to even listen to them and being able to hear those perspectives. And then, you know, because sometimes you just don't have that around you. And that's how you become a better professional, a better person, is gaining all those perspectives from different people with different backgrounds. And so, yeah, podcasts like yours, I mean, you say that you want to keep going until you don't need it, but I don't know. I just feel like it's always going to be needed. So would you ever consider having kind of somebody else come on the Brave Space as like your co-host if it starts to feel like too much for you? I'm not trying to pitch myself at all, but I'm so curious because now that I'm on the other side, this is a lot of work. Like you do a lot of work, Britt. So I'm just so curious how, like, longevity wise.
Yeah, I have definitely thought about that because it is. And thank you so much for that feedback, by the way. I'm going to be thinking about that a lot, and it's going to make me feel good and warm and fuzzy inside. Really means a lot. I would love to live in a world where Brave Space doesn't die, right? And like, if I can't carry the torch anymore, I would like for someone else to pick it up and keep it thriving. But like you said, it is a lot of work. It is a heavy lift. And like, I think you need to be able to put yourself in a certain mind space and remove yourself from that mind space in order to have those conversations. Yeah. Like there have been recordings where I needed to just go for a walk then, you know, where I was like, I got to get everything we just talked about was important and we needed to talk about it and people need to hear it, but I need to let it go so that I can go to bed.
Yeah. I feel you on that.
That's why I never became a massage therapist.
Girl, what? Wait, I'm sorry. Connect those dots for me.
So when it's the same thing. It's like it's too much empathing, right? So when you're like you're massaging, you're sometimes absorbing the person's energy. And I picked this up from being a kid. In my family, everyone was like, Chrissy, I need a shoulder massage, and it was fine, right? So I like grew up being like the family masseuse. And I realized being little that I would get really hot and like negative energy, and I would just feel really yucky after I would give a shoulder massage. And then I actually started going to school to be a massage therapist. And there was a course about how you can't let yourself get like connected to this person. You have to kind of put up this wall or facade, and I just could not do it. So there's what you just said is also true in a lot of other industries where you just have to kind of take yourself out of it, do the job and come back to center. But yeah, that's why I was never able to be a massage therapist, because I'd end up going home and crying or something because I just absorbed all of their motherhood trauma or whatever.
So you're an empath. Britt, are you kind of,
you
give empath energy. I also am one. And that is something I'm learning in tennis right now. This is my adult sport I'm picking up. I also have never sported, so it's been interesting. But in games, because of course I decided to go full ADHD. And I'm in a whole league. Why? I don't know, but I'm in the league and I compete and I'm at the bottom. Anyway, it's fun, but I am learning. It is so hard to find the balance between being in the game and letting yourself be focused enough to like give yourself feedback and like continue the game, but also not being in the game so much that you are taking on for lack of a better word, the energy of that loss.
Yeah.
And, like, not taking it to the next game. And especially when you're really bad. And it's been so interesting to like find that line. It's like, okay, I need to be in this. And because at first I was completely cutting myself off. And I swear I would like black out. I had no idea what I did for like the whole match. And then my coach was like, girl, like you need to know what you're doing or else you're never going to get better. So then now it's like trying to find that balance between being in, and being able to, get feedback, learn, but then also not taking anything too personally and being able to just say like, sometimes it is what it is, and I feel like also that's actually working out really well in other aspects of my life, including work and different things like that. So
Yeah, there's definitely something to be said for leaving it all on the field, I think they say in the sport.
Oh, yeah.
But it's so when you're playing tennis, like you give it your all, you get that feedback, you learn, you grow, and when you walk away from the court, tennis is over, right? That's the same mindset I try to apply to podcasting, and it's the same mindset I apply to my job. When I leave campus does not exist anymore.
Right.
And that is for my own mental health. And that is so that I am not devaluing myself. Because let's be honest, I work for salary. The more time I am putting in that I shouldn't be, the less money I am making. So I am not willing to devalue myself by giving this more time and energy and mental space than it deserves.
Right. And that's so opposite of like corporate attitude, like it's kind of one of those things like, okay, to get to the top, you have to give so much of yourself and work outside just those hours. And it's always interesting to see like, okay, I want to become successful, but then I also want to balance my life and not sell my soul to this job, which I mean, all of us are learning or a lot of people are learning right now who can just drop you at any minute, regardless of how long you've been there or how much of yourself you've given. So that is interesting.
Yeah. I think that's why I have the multiple calendar aspect. Because like I have, the WAVIT podcast calendar, I have my work calendar, and then I have my personal calendar, and then now I have the political calendar. So for me, like when I kind of lock into that brain space, I'm full bore into that brain space. And then when I'm done or I've reached the last item on the to-do list, that door is shut and now I open a new one. And I cannot, like when I'm working at my desk, that is 100% Sony time. There's nothing else going on outside. And then as soon as that 5 o'clock hits, that door is shut and I'm moving on to the next thing. And I'm still working on the emotional door shutting. Like I'm talking more about like the logistical mental management door, but the emotional door, that's been interesting because I haven't figured out a good analogy for this, but like, let's say I had a full day where I was being involved in all of those activities, right? Something personal was going on, something with work was going on in the political sphere, and then with WAVIT. Like, let's say I had a full day of that. Something will happen minusculely, good or bad, naturally with each of those objects or each of those responsibilities, and they'll just add a little bit of emotional stress. Boop, right? So I have like a little dot of emotional stress. Let's put it on a scale, I guess. So by the end of the day, the scale's like this because I have too many little emotional issues that took place that I haven't processed yet. So when all those doors are shut at the end of the day, I still have to process this and make sure that I have recognized that meeting where I got really annoyed with what was going on, but I didn't say anything. I didn't change anything, and I didn't really communicate. So what is that really doing? So there is a huge element to the personal management of these items that I think is really important, not just logistically, but also emotionally. And if I catch myself not processing the little micro emotional things that go on throughout the week, like I'm a basket case by the weekend. I'll have to take like a whole day off. For a long time, I actually did no tech Sundays. And every now and then I will do that.
No what?
No tech Sundays.
Oh.
So all technology gets unplugged, turned off, and I just operate like a normal human with no technology throughout the day. And it's awesome. Yeah. It's really, really beneficial. And I still do that every now and then. But there was a period of my life where I did it religiously for like 3 years, and it was really great. It gave me that space to relax and dial back in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that is so extremely unplugging. So important for our mental health. And just, I don't know, I just feel like as women, like I really hear what you're saying about these like little feelings that add up and not, I mean, that's for any human being, but where my brain started to go with as women is like our hormonal cycles.
Mm-hmm.
And how like that is affecting the way we think and feel, and how we really need to recognize and lean into that and not pretend that that's not happening.
Totally.
I think especially working in tech that is a masculine field, we feel the need to lean into their masculine energy and mask the way that we're feeling in our bodies. And I wish we would stop doing that, honestly. And like, I don't know, the weekend simply is not long enough, because you spend one day doing all the chores and getting your life together. And maybe, like, if you're lucky, half a day being a relaxed human being before you're just back to the grind. And I just feel like that's not sustainable.
Britt, have you, as somebody with ADHD, would you ever want to be completely virtual, or do you think that that's not your vibe?
That's hard. I feel like that's not totally my vibe, only because I do so well with the every day is a little different thing, where like if I had the every day I'm in this one location, that might not be good for me over time. Like I feel like I'd really like it for some amount of time, maybe even a year or two, but I think I would hit a wall where it was like, oh, this is no longer novel.
Yep. I feel you. In order to battle that, because you're wiser than I am, because I did not think I would, and then I did, and then I was like, okay, this sucks now. So I regularly move around the house. So if you've seen all these episodes, like you've seen like 3 or 4 different rooms, and like my husband will come home and my desk will be in a different room, and I'm just like, I need a different space. Like it's driving me insane to be in the same space. It's like I stopped being able to work, stopped being able to be creative, and just it is really the novelty of it. And I do miss interacting with people. I feel like that's always really fun and challenging in its own ways.
I think there's a conversation too around, I don't want to say prejudice or stereotyping, but the conversations between people who are in office to people who work remote. Like there is a different vibe. Like when I'm in meetings with people who also work remote, there's a different vibe than when there's people in those meetings that go to an office.
Interesting.
It is interesting. I just thought of that while you were talking.
Do we feel that vibe with Britt right now? You can tell me. Tell the secret.
Okay.
I don't feel the vibe. I'll be honest. I don't. I think I do know exactly what you're talking about. And sometimes that happens because I'm the only virtual one on my team. But yeah, I think it's interesting to see. I agree.
There seems to be this like weird understanding or idea of people who predominantly work in on-site, that like people who work remote, quote unquote, aren't working. And it's like, who do you think's doing the work? Some magical fairy? Like their job is getting done, is it not? So like, why do you think this? It's
yeah. I think that's an older mentality. There was a lady, I had to take a meeting. I mean, I've traveled for 15 years, so I took a meeting with my laptop at a restaurant. And so I had a laptop with my notes, like taking my notes. And then the Teams call was minimized and I had the headphones in. She was giving me the death glare the entire time that I was having this meeting. And it doesn't surprise me, honestly. She was most likely, I'm totally projecting on her, I think that she was a in-office employee on her own lunch break. And I think that she was just confused. Like, how could that be considered working? And I think honestly, that's as far as it goes in their minds, is how is that considered working when she's not at a desk in a cubicle punching a clock, But, yeah. I don't know. I could talk at length on tangents about the argument that people who work from home aren't working, because I have a very strong work ethic, and I keep myself very managed. And so thankfully, I have never had any issues where leadership or anybody I work with think that I'm sitting there twiddling my thumbs, collecting a paycheck, because I'm certainly not. And I'm not working to be lazy. Like, that's just not how my mind works. Everything I have going on in my life is for purpose, and I'm intentional about it. And if I need to be lazy, it's going to be doing something totally different, not something that feeds me, not an effort that literally puts food on my kitchen table. So out of all the wonderful topics we talked about, I wanted to ask you a question that you actually asked me on my episode that still to this day I think about. And you were like, it was something along the lines where if you weren't doing all the things that you were doing today, what career or job do you wish you could have? And I think my answer to you on your podcast was I would be the president of the United States. And I love that I said that, because that came from such a vulnerable place. And it also came from like such a naive place, because I have no idea how I would be able to accomplish that in this lifetime. But what that question sparked was the courage that I could actually run for city council, because I was like, wait a minute. If I don't know how to become the president of the United States today, then I'm going to go find out. Like, what is it like to be a normal American citizen who's not involved in anything political? How do they get involved politically? What is this whole process like? And honestly, that's what sparked me to finally get off my ASS and run. So
that's incredible.
And so, yeah, the question goes right back to you is what do you think you'd be up to if you weren't doing what you're doing?
Oh my gosh. You know what I would love to do is like be a nomad. Like, I would love to, and understand, I don't know how to do any of this at all. This is straight, like, in theory, I think I might like this. To like get like a school bus or van or something that I convert into my happy home, and I just like travel and I don't know, pick up odd jobs. I have no idea how that works. Maybe find a remote job, and then that would be the novel thing, because I'm always traveling in my van and all I need is internet access. Right. I also like, maybe kind of in that same vein, but I've always been really interested about like how to live off the land, and like be more sustainable and more self-sustaining. And like, in real life, I do garden pretty extensively, but I'm always like, how do I do more? I wish I could like I wish my whole yard could be garden, and I wish I could have goats and chickens. I don't live in a world where that can be a reality right now, but if I could.
I totally see that for you.
Thank you.
100%. I would not be surprised if you told me that was your life. I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. Of course.
I was just texting all of my gardening friends this morning about what they plan to put in their gardens this year.
Have you guys heard of chaos gardening?
Yes.
Britt, yes.
Your eyes got so big for the audio listeners. No, because that looks super cool.
Oh.
Yeah, I've thought about it. I have gone so far as to thinking about what patches of grass can I ask my husband to rip up so that I can chaos garden there instead.
Yes. I'm like, less work for you.
Yes.
But then I can't do another, I have too many hobbies. I can't go full send into yet another hobby. Like I need to calm down. But man, those TikTok videos, I went down on a rabbit trail and I was like, wow, this looks so fun and just like very, I don't know, not frivolous, but like
there's like a free spirit nature to it.
It looks so cool.
Yes.
Well, I'm not going to ask you to say where they can find you. The audience can find you on social media, because we already talked at length about your fantastic social media presence. But if you want to add anything, you're more than welcome to. But thank you so much for coming on with us. I loved this conversation. I feel like we need to do like a part 2 sometime. Just talk about whatever's going on, see how our gardens are doing.
Yes, I would love that. Thank you guys for having me. This was really fun. I am happy to join you at any time. Like we said, I have that dope LinkedIn that you can look at. I'm also on X and Blue Sky, although I admittedly don't post a lot to either anymore because I find social media exhausting, but I am there. So,
Amen.
yeah.
Yeah, we're all there too. All right, y'all. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.